Hello, 3RO. I'm going to read the next chapter in Surprises According to Humphrey. When we left off, they had just had a fire drill, and the kids wanted to bring Humphrey and Og out, and Mrs. Wright, who's kind of in charge of the safety drills at Longfellow School, was not happy about it. And they met the fireman, firefighter, I think his name is firefighter Jeff. So we're going to hear a little bit more from him. Chapter 2, Stop, Drop, and More Surprises. Kirk had to stay in during afternoon recess and write a letter of apology on the chalkboard. Even though she acted angry, I don't think Mrs. Brisbane thought his prank was that bad. After all, it was very clever of him to think of recording the bell. True to his word, Jeff Herman stopped by our classroom late in the day. He showed us pictures of very cool fire engines with noisy sirens, and he told us not to play with matches. He said that if you are in a building that's on fire, you should stay low and go. That means you should stay low to the ground and get out of the building as fast as you can. Then he told us something very important. If your clothes ever catch on fire, you should remember 3 things. Who knows what those 3 things are? He asked. Seth and Garth raised their hands right away, but before anyone called on them, Heidi blurted out, "Stop, drop, and roll." "Raise your hand, Heidi Hopper, please," Mrs. Brisbane said. She sounded really annoyed. "Sorry, Mr. Herman," she told the firefighter. He just smiled and explained that if you or a friend ever have your clothes catch on fire, you should stop, drop to the floor, and roll. That will put the fire out. Then came the fun part. He made us all practice. I want all of you to practice right now in the middle of this. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Stop, drop, and roll. Excellent. Now you know what to do. My friends stood by their desks. I stood in my cage and shouted, "Stop, drop, roll." Then we dropped to the ground and rolled on the floor. I was luckier than my friends, though, because I have such soft bedding on the bottom of my cage. I think even Og must have practiced because I heard splashing coming from his cage. Jeff Herman gave the students stickers that said "Stop, drop, roll," and suddenly school was over for the day. Everybody was smiling and happy except for Mrs. Brisbane. She frowned as she stopped Heidi on her way out of class. "Heidi, it's bad enough when you don't raise your hand in class, but when we have a guest and you speak out like that, it's rude and embarrassing." Heidi looked up at Mrs. Brisbane with big, sad eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. "I forgot." "Do you remember to come to school and you remember to do your homework?" I'm happy to say. "Why can't you remember to raise your hand?" I guess it's just a bad habit," Heidi explained. Mrs. Brisbane sighed loudly. "I'd better call your parents in again." The Hoppers had already been in twice this school year, and both times they said Heidi was well behaved at home. They promised to talk to her about her disruptive behavior. Each time, Heidi was quiet for a day or 2 after the meeting, but she'd always gone back to blurting things out. Mrs. Brisbane dismissed Heidi so she could catch her bus. Then she slowly walked over to the table where Og and I live. "Fellas," she said, "if there's one thing I want to accomplish by the end of the school year, it's getting Heidi Hopper to raise her hand." "Well, if anybody can do it, you can," I shouted. But of course, all she heard was squeak, 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 squeak. That's the problem with being a classroom hamster. I can read, I can write, I can help my friends, but it's hard for me to make myself understood. Sometimes I wish I had a magic wand to wave all my students' problems away, she said. Then she stared right at me. "Come to think of it, Humphrey, you're not too good about raising your paw either." See you boys tomorrow." After she left, I thought about what Mrs. Brisbane had said. You know, Og, I do understand Heidi's problem. I do forget to raise my paw before squeaking up in class. Of course, I wouldn't get called on anyway, but Heidi could, and she's a smart cookie. She should be able to learn. "Boing," said Og. I'd finally decided that the odd sound Og made was a way of agreeing with me. And Mrs. Brisbane knows so many things, like how to get speak up say to speak up, and how to get pay attention art to pay more attention. Surely she can find a way to help Heidi. Og apparently didn't have any opinion on the subject, so I crawled into my sleeping hut to think things over. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The sound woke me from my doze, and this time I wasn't the one squeaking. It was Aldo Amato coming in to clean the room. His cart needed a little bit of oil to stop all that racket. I peeked out of my sleeping hut, and the lights came on, temporarily blinding me, but I heard Aldo's familiar voice. Buenos noches, señores. ¿Cómo estás? The voice sounded like Aldo's, but for the first time ever, I couldn't understand a word he was saying. It reminded me of the weekend I spent at Saya's house, when I couldn't understand her family either. It took me a while to realize they were speaking another language, but Aldo had always spoken English until tonight. Aldo, is that you? I squeaked. My eyes got used to the light, and I could see the person in the room was actually Aldo. He stopped and looked up at the clock. Son las 7:30. Huh? I squeaked. Og let out an alarmed boing. I guess he was surprised to hear Aldo's strange new way of speaking, too. Aldo looked puzzled. Or is it media? I always forget. He set to work moving the desks, sweeping the floor, dusting the desks, while all muttering strange words like Me llama Aldo. ¿Cómo está usted? ¿Dónde está él? ¿Dónde está la... Oh, mamma mia, those L's and las. ¿Dónde está la escuela? He swept more and more furiously. Tengo un lápiz. ¿Él tiene un lápiz? Tienen lápices. Ugh! Og, can you understand what he's saying? I called out over to my googly-eyed friend. Boing, boing, he twanged back. He was just as confused as I was. Aldo put the desks back in place. Then he pulled up a chair close to my cage and took out his lunch bag. He tore a little piece of lettuce from a sandwich and poked it through the bars of my cage. Here, muchacho. Thanks, I squeaked. I don't know the word for lettuce, Aldo said, sounding discouraged. What on earth was he talking about? The word for lettuce is lettuce, isn't it? Aldo ate in silence, then suddenly stood up. Well, gotta go, amigos, he said, opening the blinds. Sometimes Principal Morales calls me amigo, so it must be something good. Hasta luego, Aldo said. I never heard that before. Whatever, I squeaked back. I was very confused. Soon Aldo was gone. The lights were out, and the room was bathed in a silvery glow of the streetlight. I could hear Og swimming in his tank, but I didn't pay much attention. I was too busy thinking about Aldo and wondering what was wrong with him. He and I had always understood each other pretty well until tonight. Night is a funny time. It's the time when most of us hamsters are usually active, and it's the time when most humans are usually sleepy. It's a good time for thinking, but sometimes thinking can turn into worrying, at least for me. I wasn't just worried because I couldn't understand Aldo. I was worried what would happen if the fire alarm started beeping at night. Who would carry Og and I outside? At least I knew how to stop, drop, and roll, thanks to that nice firefighter, Jeff. Then I remembered that my lock doesn't lock. While it appeared to be locked to the humans, I could open it and come and go as I pleased. So in case of a fire, I could escape if I had to. That was a relief. But what about Og? Oh, wait. He can pop the top off his tank. I knew Og and I would be able to scurry, hurry, and hop our way to safety. Once I figured that out, I felt a lot better. And the next thing I knew, the morning bell was ringing and another day of school was about to begin. Humphrey's Dictionary of Wonderful Words. Surprise. Something totally unexpected and unplanned for. A surprise can be good, like a postcard from Miss Mac, or a surprise can be bad, like Miss Mac moving to Brazil. A surprise can also be both good and bad, like a shiny balloon, a good thing, that suddenly pops and scares you, a bad thing. All right, that is the end of chapter 2. I'm going to try, I think, during spring break to continue sending a chapter a day because I feel like that would be a nice way to kind of end your day. I hope you're enjoying the story. This story gets very good, very funny. This is one of my favorite Humphrey books. So stay tuned. Enjoy your day. Bye.